The black iron of the throne room's doors groaned on ancient hinges as Eddard Stark was pushed inside at spear point. But this time no jeering crowd of Lannister guards awaited him. Steel-clad men of the City Watch flanked the hall instead, grim and uncertain. Their cloaks the gold of House Lannister, on the outside, yet lined with gray fur, that whispered of some deeper loyalty. Above, torchlight shivered on the vaulted ceiling like restless spirits. Ned's wrists ached from tight cords, blood drying where the ropes had bitten. But when he lifted his eyes to the Iron Throne, he felt an unfamiliar steadiness settle in his chest. A calm born of winter fields and deep-rooted weirwoods that no southern intrigue could strip from him. Joffrey Baratheon lounged upon the throne as though it were carved for his narrow frame alone, but the boy's petulant smile twitched when he sensed the charged hush in the chamber. Cersei stood at his side, pale and rigid, fingers clenched so hard about a parchment roll that wax seals cracked beneath her nails. Behind them, Grand Maester Pycelle wheezed softly, and to the right, the small council formed a crooked line, Petyr Baelish with the faintest curl of amusement, very smooth and inscrutable. Ser Barristan Selmy armored head to toe, gauntleted fists resting on the pommel of his sword. The Kingsguard Lord Commander's eyes lingered on Ned, and in their weary blue he glimpsed echoes of honor long threatened by rot. At Lord Baelish's subtle signal, 2 guards stepped forward. Ned expected another forced confession to treason, but instead the soldiers cut his bonds. Fire raced through his numb hands. He flexed stiff fingers, surprised. Baelish's voice drifted across the chamber, oily as lamp smoke. His Grace has chosen mercy this day. Lord Stark shall be allowed words in his own defense. One last chance to swear fealty. Joffrey's chin jerked up. "Kneel, traitor," the boy snapped, pitch breaking. "Swear to me, and perhaps I'll grant you the wall instead of your head." Ned straightened. "Betray Catelyn and the girls. Abandon Robb and Bran to the cold north." His heart hammered, yet his mind stayed cool as a pond beneath winter ice. He faced Joffrey but spoke to the hall at large, voice carrying on still air. "I will kneel to no usurper, nor bow to a boy propped up by his mother's falsehoods. You are not king. Robert's trueborn son lives still, and these 7 kingdoms deserve truth, not golden lies." Gasps rippled. Cersei's lips thinned, but Baelish only smiled wider, as though the final bead on some hidden abacus had clicked into place. From a side door, Lord Renly Baratheon strode forth clad in dark green velvet, a golden stag rampant across his chest. In his mailed hand he bore Robert's heavy warhammer, still crusted with boar-dried blood. The crowd parted, startled. Renly's hazel gaze met Ned's with guarded respect. "I claim my brother's crown," Renly announced, voice echoing. "Robert named no successor, but I stand as his grown brother, sound of limb and mind. The realm needs peace, not a bastard boy." Renly laid the hammer at Ned's feet. "Lord Stark, Hand of the King, will you stand with me?" Chaos burst like a struck hive. Cersei hissed for guards. Pycelle blustered. Baelish vanished behind a curtain of cloaks. Yet the City Watch held position. Their captain, Janos Slynt, glancing not to the Queen but to Varys, who made the smallest nod. Lannister swords remained sheathed. Joffrey screeched orders unheard over the uproar. Ser Barristan stepped forward. "The Kingsguard serves the crown, but its first oath is to the realm," he thundered. "If wrong has been done, it must be set aright." White cloak swirling, Selmy drew his blade and pointed it, slowly, deliberately, toward Cersei. Time stilled. Ned bent, lifting Robert's hammer, its weight familiar from tourneys past. Whispers of the godswood brushed his memory. The quiet council of old gods telling him some debts must be paid in coin of courage. He faced Joffrey and Cersei with iron in his voice. "Stand down, or I will see justice done for Robert and for the realm." The Queen's resolve shattered. She backed away, lips trembling at Selmy's blade. Joffrey's eyes darted for escape, but there was none. The City Watch secured the dais, and in that frozen moment, Lannister dominance crumbled like frost-rimmed stone beneath spring thaw. Later, in the Tower of the Hand, Ned wrote swift letters by candlelight. One to Winterfell, addressed to Maester Luwin, bidding him ready the north but keep Bran and Rickon safe. One to Catelyn at River Run, begging her discretion among the Tully banners. And one to his son, Robb Stark, Lord of Winterfell in his absence. Robb. The direwolves howl for change. The crown is unsteady in the south, and I cannot yet leave King's Landing. I name you Prince of Winter until my return. Heir to the north and my voice in all matters. Wear the title lightly, but wield it with honor. Look to the welfare of our people, and trust the counsel of Grey Wind when men's tongues grow forked. Remember that winter will come, yet the pack survives when its leader stands firm. Your father, Eddard Stark. Ned sanded the parchment, sealing it with dark green wax cut by the direwolf stamp. When he closed his eyes, he could see Robb's surprise. Imagine the way his eldest would square shoulders, feeling the mantle settle like freshly forged mail. Boy no longer. Prince, forged in need. Dawn pinked the sky when Varys appeared soundlessly by the window. A bold night's work, my lord, the spider murmured. Yet bold strokes invite swift riposte. Casterly Rock will not sit idle. Nor will Stannis Baratheon when he learns Renly claims their brother's throne. Ned rubbed weary eyes. Stannis has right by law, yet without men he cannot hold a crown. Renly has charm and swords enough to keep peace for now. Peace, Varys echoed, as though tasting a foreign spice. You may have bought the realm a fragile lull, but war's drums still beat beyond these walls. North and south alike gather thunder. Thunder indeed. Ravens winged north bearing word of Ned's survival and Robb's new title. At Winterfell, banners stirred. The Umbers roared their approval. The Manderleys weighed loyalty against past grievances. The Karstarks lit torches in silent vigil. Robb paced the hall of stone, gray eyes bright with mingled fear and hope. Grey wind shadowed him, fur bristling as though reading hearts. Maester Luwin's quill scratched day and night, dispatching replies while Sir Roderick trained levies in the yard. Catelyn, riding for River Run, felt her heart lurch as she read Ned's seal beside the tumblestone. The parchment shimmered in sunlight, the direwolf imprint a promise of reunion. She pressed it to her lips, then spurred her horse, determination flaring. If Robb was to be Prince of Winter, his mother would weave alliances to bind the Trident to the north. Edmure and Brynden would listen. Hoster Tully's sickbed roused at mention of Stark honor. Back in King's Landing, the Red Keep boiled like a pot left untended. Baelish resurfaced with a sly proposal. House archer competitions to distract smallfolk. Lowered bread prices to pacify Fleabottom. Yet behind his smiles he courted both Renly and the Tyrells. Seeds of roses scattered across politics. Lord Tywin's reply arrived by Raven. No words, only a single gilded lion claw bound to a scroll of blank parchment. A threat written in silence. On the third day, after the throne room confrontation, Ned met privately with Renly in the Godswood Garden, where southern pines whispered of faraway snows. Renly looked every inch a king in emerald brocade, though youth lingered at the corners of his eyes. I thank you, Lord Stark, he said, for sparing needless blood, but I must have the realm's recognition. Will the North bend the knee to me? Ned considered frost-tipped leaves, remembering Robb's first shaky steps upon Winterfell's battlements. The North bends to no Southron crown lightly. Name Robb Warden of the North, Prince of Winter under your rule, and assure our laws are honored. Then the Starks may speak for you. Renly chewed his lip. Stannis will call me usurper, yet I need allies. Very well, let Robb hold his title. But I ask this, will you serve as hand still? I will serve the realm, Ned answered. No throne, no crown. Only peace. Thus the fragile accord was cast. Renly crowned with stag antler circlet beneath a bright autumn sun. Ned Stark sworn once more as hand, and Sir Barristan reinstated unhindered. Margaery Tyrell was betrothed to Renly within the week. Highgarden's golden harvests pledged to feed King's Landing. Yet gloom pooled in every corner where Lannister gold had once flowed, and whispers told of Tywin, marching westward, claws unsheathed. One night, Arya slipped past guards into Ned's solar. eyes fierce beneath tangled hair. "You're alive," she breathed, anger and relief battling within. "They said you were dead." Ned knelt, pulling her close, inhaling horse sweat and lemon cakes on her breath. "Alive and better for this moment," he murmured. "But you must be careful. The city is dangerous." She resisted, tears unshed. He pressed a small bundle into her palm. "Needle," he said. "Keep it hidden. Keep to the shadows if you must, but remember, even a wolf cub bears teeth." Sansa was harder to console. She visited under guard, all courtesy, tears sparkling like jewels upon porcelain cheeks. She spoke of Joffrey in trembling tones. Betrayal had carved new hollows in her heart. Ned held her hands, promising her home and safety, but her gaze clung to the memory of songs turned sour. Weeks folded into months. Letters traveled between father and son. Robb recounting harvest tallies, the birth of twin foals in the Winterfell stables, the uneasy feasts attended by lords who measured a boy prince with calculating eyes. Ned sent guidance on just tithes, on resolving disputes over timber rights, on when mercy outweighed retribution. Each message bound them despite leagues of field and sky. On frost-kissed dawns Ned walked the Red Keep's ramparts, Bran's broken fall echoing with every crow cry. He wondered whether a crown or a throne was worth any child's life. He pondered promises made at dawn's gray hour when vows feel truest, promises to watch the long night for threats beyond mortal kings. He spoke of such things to Sir Barristan, and found in the old knight a kindred spirit weary of petty squabbles. Yet largesse cannot still ambition's hunger. Cersei, confined to chambers, wrote letter upon letter to her father. Her twin, her allies real and imagined. Pycelle poured sweet sleep into her wine, but fire smoldered behind emerald eyes. One mist-shrouded evening, Varys intercepted a raven bearing the lion's sigil with coded instructions to Qyburn of Harrenhal. Orders to brew dark potions and restore monstrous mountain to life. Varys presented it with silk-gloved fingers to Ned. The hand read, felt his stomach knot. War would come, no matter how gentle the reins he tried to guide. At Riverrun, Catelyn convened a council of river lords beneath banners of trout and oak leaf. Edmure paced, anxious to prove valor. The Blackfish leaned silent upon a spear. Lord Jason Mallister stroked his silver beard. Word of Robb's title stirred both loyalty and doubt. Could a boy hold north and riverlands while storms rose from east and west? Catelyn spoke then, voice clear as rivers in spring. "Robb is not alone. He has the weight of Winterfell's oaths and the counsel of his father. We must look beyond old borders. If we stand as one pack, Lannister fangs will find no easy flesh." Her words tolled like bells across the Trident. Men remembered Tully honor, Stark justice, and Baratheon revelry, eclipsed by crimson wedding bells yet to toll. They sharpened swords, mended bridges, and waited on winter winds. Far in the Eyrie, young Lord Robert Arryn clutched Lady Stone as Lysa paced marble floors. Raven spoke of her sister's husband alive, alive. Yet Lysa feared the game more than ever. She wrote secret letters to Stannis, whispering of bastardy and rightful crowns, then burned them when moonlight revealed her trembling hand. Littlefinger visited often, smiling, weaving, promising safety for sweet Robin, promising power. Across the narrow sea, exiled dragons hatched in dreams of a silver-haired queen. Ships set sail bearing word of Westeros fractured, each captain with his own rumors. King Renly beloved, King Stannis brooding on Dragonstone, Lord Tywin mustering red banners, Prince Robb crowned in Winterfell's snow, in slaver markets of Astapor. Spymasters weighed how many unsullied a divided realm might buy. Winter's breath swept south sooner than farmers expected, carrying rumors of white shadows along the wall. Jon Snow, cloaked in black atop the ramparts of Castle Black, read his father's raven with numb fingers. Pride warred with loneliness when he learned Robb was Prince of Winter. Yet duty bound him as tight as any chain. He peered into night's endless dark, wondering which oath would matter when cold winds rose. In King's Landing, autumn turned the Blackwater a ribbon of rust. Harvest wagons choked the gates, their produce seized for royal stores, yet small folk saw only new flags and new taxes. Breadlines lengthened. Whispers blamed stark austerity. Baelish fanned those embers, hinting the northern hand meant to starve the city. When Ned confronted him in the tower stair, Littlefinger merely shrugged. "Chaos is a ladder, my lord. Better to climb than be trampled." Ned's palm itched for the feel of his long sword. "Ice now locked in the treasury for safety. One day that ladder will crumble," he warned. "Pray you do not fall with it." The full moon tourney, hastily declared to honor Renly's ascension, drew knights from dawn to the Reach. In glittering lists, Ned sat as judge, wearing simple gray. He watched Sir Loras tilt against Brienne of Tarth. Heard the crowd roar for splintering lances, yet his thoughts drifted to Robb, to Bran's letters describing raven rescues and direwolf hunts, to the weight of being father both near and far. When the tilts ended, Ned slipped from the cheering stands and walked the dank tunnels beneath the Dragon Pit ruins, seeking quiet from courtly noise. There, among shadows of dead beasts, he met Varys again. "The spider spins," Ned said dryly. "And the wolf stalks," Varys replied. "I bring tidings. Stannis Reedy's ships. He means to sail upon the next fair wind, banners of the fiery heart aflutter. And beyond that, whispers of dragons." "No. Let Stannis come," Ned muttered. "If he brings proof and lawful claim, the realm will judge." "Lawful or not, war will judge," Varys said. "You cannot stand astride a blade's edge forever, Lord Stark. Sooner or later, the steel will draw blood." Ned remembered the rasp of sword upon block, the warmth of Bran's forehead as he had touched it, promising summer's return. He clenched his jaw. "Then I will keep the edge from children's throats as long as I breathe." Ravens flew north again with fresh instructions. "Assemble grain, train archers, but hold open the king's road for refugees should war scorch fields." Robb rayed them in the great hall beside a crackling hearth. He had grown leaner, jawline sharpening, voice gaining the gravel of responsibility. When Lord Greychon Umber challenged his youth, Robb met him in the yard, gray wind snarling at his side. Wooden swords clacked until splinters flew. Robb's final strike sent the Greyjohn to one knee. Laughter boomed. Bonds forged in sweat are seldom broken. Word of the victory spread, emboldening hesitant lords. Lady Lyanna Mormont, barely 10 summers, sent a letter scribbled in bold strokes. "Bear Island knows no king but the king in the north whose name is Stark." Each time Robb read those words, his pulse quickened. Yet behind triumph he felt weight. To lead was to choose whose sons might never return. Snow dusted the roofs of King's Landing on the morning Stannis warships appeared at Blackwater Bay's mouth. Sleek hulls painted night dark, sails of red and gold crowned by flaming hearts. Renly's fleet stood ready, colors snapping, Tyrell green and Baratheon gold side by side. Bells tolled as though for a funeral. In the throne room, Renly conferred with Ned, Sir Barristan, and Sir Davos Seaworth, newly arrived envoy of Stannis. "His Grace offers parley," Davos said, voice roughened by salt wind. "He wishes only to speak with Lord Stark, no others, and will swear safe conduct beneath the Seven." Renly bristled. "He will speak to me, or he will taste my steel." Ned intervened. "Let me go. I am hand to the realm. If Stannis will hear sense, lives may be spared." Cersei, present by royal decree though stripped of power, laughed bitterly. "You men clamor for crowns like children for sweetmeats while lions roar beyond your walls. Keep squabbling. My father will feast on what's left." But no one listened to her now. That dusk, Ned boarded a small galley and crossed black water lit by torch glow to Stannis' flagship, Fury. Beneath reefed sails, the brothers Baratheon stood like weathered statues, Stannis gaunt, Renly radiant in candlelight. Ned found himself between summer and winter, 2 kings by claim yet neither by right. He set Robert's hammer at his feet. "We are 3 men who loved the same brother," Ned began. "Robert died with none to guide his realm. If we war, Lannisters will prey on the realm's weakness, and winter will devour small folk, while high lords count crowns. I ask you both, stand united. Stannis, your claim by birth is true, But you must gain hearts as well as laws. Renly, you have those hearts but lack lawful right. Join your strengths, and the realm may yet survive. Now. Stannis' lips thinned. I will not yield what law names mine. Renly crossed arms, stubborn. And I will not bend knee to a brother who never laughed. Silence yawned, broken only by gull calls. Ned turned to Sir Davos. You are a man of plain sense. Speak. Davos swallowed. The hand speaks honest words, my lords. The north stirs. Dragons wake across the sea. The wall calls for aid. We can ill afford fratricide. Then. Install. Something flickered in Stannis' steel eyes. If Renly swears fealty, I will name him my heir until I father sons. Renly's jaw worked. And leave Highgarden chained to your whims? Never. It unraveled. Swords were not drawn, yet oaths snapped like ice underfoot. Ned departed that ship heart heavy, fearing the very breath he carried home could kindle war. Back in the Red Keep, he penned perhaps the hardest letter of all, sealed with twin sigils, direwolf and trident. Robb. War rolls south. I endeavored to stay winter's bite, but men prove stubborn as frozen earth. Arm, yet remain patient. Do not rush to feast on rumor. Wait upon surety. If swords must sing, let their chorus be just. Remember always, a king's crown weighs less than a father's hope. Eddard Stark. Robb read those words by hearth glow while Theon Greyjoy lounged nearby, talking of maiden pools and longships. The boy prince rose, handing the parchment to Maester Luwin. Summon my bannermen. Quietly, we prepare for winter's song. End day. Thus drums rumbled from Bear Island to Barrowlands, while Tywin Lannister's hosts marched east, red cloaks like flowing wounds against frost-browned grass. Rivers froze thin, cracked beneath boot and hoof. And in King's Landing, Ned Stark watched ravens dance against gray skies, knowing each beat of wings carried hope and dread. Intertwined, he stood one evening upon the balcony where on distant days, Mad King Aerys had watched wildfire burn, and felt the chill breath of distant snows. Wind tugged his cloak. A whisper from north of the wall. He saw in his mind a weirwood's red leaves drifting upon still water. Saw Robb standing tall at Winterfell's gate. Saw Arya's grin. Sansa's tearful strength. Bran's determination, Rickon's laughter. Saw the pack, unbroken. Winter is coming, he murmured to the darkening city, voice both warning and vow. But the wolf endures. And somewhere beyond counting clouds, a dire wolf howled, long and low, carrying across leagues of field and forest, as though answering its lord with promise that no matter the crowns men forged, the North would remember. Oh, Ka. The gray dawn that followed the parley with Stannis broke over King's Landing like a blade of pale steel, its light merciless, its promise uncertain. Ned Stark rose from a sleepless bed and stood at the window of the Tower of the Hand, watching mist clutch the spires. The city below murmured with nervous energy. The clang of smithies forging spearheads, the bark of dockhands unloading grain, the chants of septons begging the Seven for peace. Yet beneath every ordinary sound lurked tension. An invisible cord stretched taut between kings, ready to snap. He dressed without the aid of squires, buckling the long-ignored wolf-head gorget at his throat. The metal was cold, but familiarity steadied his pulse. When he descended the tower stair, Arya was waiting in the corridor's shadowed alcove. She wore a plain tunic and breeches, needle hidden beneath a shabby cloak. Her fierce eyes sought his approval before she spoke. "They're talking in the Street of Silk," she whispered, "saying Lannisters will strike on the morrow, saying gold buys blades sharper than honor." Ned crouched so they stood eye to eye. Rumors are arrows loosed on wind. They land oft where they're least aimed. But we must be vigilant. He rested a gentle hand upon her shoulder. "Stay close to Syrio. Keep your wits. The first sword of Braavos would rather lose his other hand than see you harmed." Arya's mouth quirked, half smile, half snarl. "I won't hide if they come. A wolf cub bites hardest when cornered." She vanished down a servant's passage before he could reply. Silent as drifting snow, Ned resumed his march toward the small council chamber. Footsteps echoing down stone corridors, draped with stag banners newly embroidered alongside Tyrell roses. Outside the council doors he paused, hearing heated voices already within. He pushed through. Renly sat at the table's head, crown of stag antlers and golden leaves gleaming beneath brazier light. Sir Loras Tyrell stood behind him, hand resting upon the hilt of his elegant longsword, white cloak of the Rainbow Guard trailing across flagstones. At Renly's right, Mace Tyrell filled the space with broad shoulders and broader ambitions. Beside him, Petyr Baelish lounged, studiously bored. Varys hovered near the back wall, hands folded within lavender sleeves. Grand Maester Pycelle fussed with scrolls, blinking owlishly as though words blurred before ancient eyes. Sir Barristan Selmy occupied the seat to Renly's left, armor polished mirror bright, expression grave. He looked up at Ned's entrance and nodded respect. Only Cersei was absent, though her ghost seemed to linger, sharp as the scent of crushed basil in the warm air. "We debate the western host," Renly announced, fingers drumming. "Ravens say my lord father-in-law has sent 50,000 men beneath Tywin's lion banners. They march east along the Mander, pillaging breadbasket villages as they go. The Reach stands ready, yet routing them risks open field battle on ground they choose." Mace Tyrell puffed. "My harvest should not feed Lannister horses. Give me leave, your grace, and I will stop them at Bitterbridge with a pincer of knights and archers." Baelish raised an eyebrow. "Bold, my lord, but costly. Zeeg ruin crops quicker than swords, and Tywin is fox enough to evade snares he can see." "Then shall." Ned found his seat and drew a breath. "Tywin rarely seeks a fair fight," he said. "He prefers victory before the first arrow is loosed. We must deny him surprise. If the City Watch remains loyal, King's Landing can withstand a siege long enough for Robb to strike from the north. But should Tywin gain allies within these walls, he will not need battering rams." Varys inclined his head, voice silk-soft. "Spiders spin nets large and small, my lords, and flies of gold carry whispers. Some guards remain uneasy, their pockets lighter since Renly's ascension. A handful of golden dragons here and there can remind them which side pays on time." "Sam." Renly's eyes flashed. "I will not purchase loyalty like a brothel favor. The realm needs faith in justice, not coin." "Justice," Littlefinger murmured. "Tastes sweeter with silver seasoning." Selmy slammed gauntleted fist upon the table. "Justice is the seven-pointed star on every knight's breast. If gold governs swords, we stand already defeated." Ned leaned forward. "Then let us treat with hearts as well as purses. Double the bread ration for city folk. Show them their new king feeds them better than the old. A fed belly is harder to bribe." "Da." Renly nodded, grudging respect. "So ordered." "Sir Barristan, see that grain levies are escorted safely to the granaries. Petyr, find funds for tavern subsidies. Varys, root out any guards whose loyalty wavers." As tasks were assigned, Ned felt weight shift subtly. Renly learning to wield the levers of rule, yet still in need of steady northern hands to guide them. The meeting adjourned. Outside, Baelish fell into step beside Ned, voice lilting with mischief. "You play at steward as well as soldier, Lord Stark. Careful. Too much competence and folk will call you kingmaker." His smile held no warmth. "I make no kings," Ned said. "I serve the realm." Littlefinger's eyes glimmered. "And yet realms are only sandcastles. Tide and time will sweep them away. Best build high walls around your children before the flood." Ned ignored the barb. In his heart he placed stones around Robb, Arya, Sansa, Bran, and Rickon, praying each stone was honor, each mortar trust. He left Baelish to his schemes and strode toward the godswood for a breath of pine-scented air. There, beneath transplanted weirwood branches, he knelt. The carved face wept red sap like frozen tears. Ned murmured ancient prayers, words older than the Seven Kingdoms, older even than the Wall of Ice. Wind rustled crimson leaves. For an instant, he swore he felt Catelyn's hand upon his shoulder. cool, comforting. He rose, resolve, and kneeled. Mark down. Hundreds of leagues away, Robb Stark stood atop Winterfell's outer wall, wolfskin cloak whipping in frigid wind. Gray wind padded along the parapet, hackles raised. Below, the courtyard thrummed with activity. Smiths at forges shaping arrowheads, spearwives from the hills drilling farmer levies, Maester Luwin directing ravens as they fluttered from rookery to battlement. The first snows had dusted the roof of the great keep, a pale reminder that true winter lurked near. Robb watched clouds scudding low across the northern sky, and felt both dread and thrill. Prince of Winter, he still tasted the title each dawn, wondering if it would choke him or nourish him. The great John strode up the stair, breath fogging. Ravens from last hearth and Carhold, my prince. They pledge men, 300 spears and 500 foot between them. Robb's pulse quickened. And the Glovers? Robert says Deepwood Mott will march come the second moon of winter, once harvest stores are sealed. The great John slammed a massive hand upon Robb's shoulder. You move them, lad. They smell wolf blood worth following. No. Robb exhaled white steam. They follow my father's name. And yours now. Forget not that. He grinned a bear's grin, then stomped back down, bellowing for more ale. Robb lingered at the wall until snowflakes flecked his hair. A distant horn echoed from the King's Road watchtower. Moments later, a rider thundered across the drawbridge, cloak ragged with frozen mud. Robb descended to meet him. The man swung down, knees buckling. From the crossroads inn, my prince, he gasped. A host, thousands, march south, Lannister read. Robb's heart hammered. He remembered his father's letter. Arm, remain patient. But patience could become cowardice. He thanked the rider, turned to Sir Roderick Castle. Send ravens. Summon the banners to Moat Cailin. We ride within a fortnight. Sir Roderick's white whiskers bristled. Your father bade caution, and caution I heed. Robb drew his cloak tight. But winter rides regardless. If we wait for first snow to melt, we will never move at all. That night in the great hall, torchlight flickered over faces tight with apprehension. Robb addressed his lords. The lion stalks Riverland's farms. If Tywin crosses the Trident unopposed, he'll strike at River Run and strangle the North's kin. We march south to break him before he sets paw on northern soil. I cannot promise victory, only battles fought in defense of blood. Bender. The hall erupted. Cheers from the Umbers, murmurs from the Manderless, cautious nods from the tall, austere Karstarks. Mage Mormont, thick-armed and stern, raised her voice. Bear Island will stand beside its prince. We swore it when Lyanna Mormont pressed quill to parchment. Agreement rolled through benches like thunder across hills. Robb glimpsed the inn in the shadows, smirking with eagerness for long war and easy plunder. He filed away the unease that stirred. Greyjoy vows were seawater, never slaking thirst. Yet allies must be trusted until they prove treacherous. That same hour, Catelyn Tully rode through Winterfell's gates, cloak streaming trout and direwolf sigils. Robb met her beneath the heart tree. They embraced, words tangled in relief. She stepped back, eyes shining wet in moonlight. You have grown, she said. Your father will scarcely know you. And you, mother, crossed kingdoms to stand with me. I feared. Fear later. She tightened fingers on his forearm. Listen now. Not all Riverlords trust a boy of 17 with their skins. You must show them their cause is just, and you are more than Ned's shadow. Robb inhaled pine and cold. I will prove myself at Moat Cailin. Catelyn studied him. Prove yourself by bringing your men home alive. Mark down. Oh, bow. In King's Landing's Red Keep, Varys slipped through secret passages behind damp walls. He descended into forgotten dungeons where flickering torches revealed blackened stones from Eris's wildfire fantasies. A hooded figure awaited, face obscured, hands gloved in duskin. They exchanged scrolls wordlessly. The figure turned and melted into darkness. Varys exhaled, gaze lingering on the parchment left behind. Upon breaking the seal, he read tidings from Pentos. Daenerys Targaryen had been sighted boarding a lean cog bound west, with 3 monstrous shadows circling her masts at dusk. Dragons grown broad as warhorses. Varys closed his eyes. "The game grows deadlier," he whispered to the damp. He memorized the words, then touched flame to the parchment, watching letters curl into ash before stepping back into his maze of stone. Meanwhile, Cersei paced her luxurious prison, once the queen's chambers, now gilded cage. Qyburn attended her, gaunt and eager, presenting vials of thick green liquid. "Sir Gregor requires another dose," he crooned. "His flesh rots yet he moves." "Good," Cersei hissed. "Let him move toward Stark and Baratheon throats." She grasped Qyburn's wrist. "And the child? Is it Joffrey's?" Qyburn's gaze darted. "Blood tests are inconclusive, Your Grace." Fury flared in emerald eyes. She hurled the vial across the room. "Inconclusive? Then make it conclude in my favor." She turned away, trembling. If lineage came into question, all she'd bargained for, and killed for, would unravel. She pressed palms to cool window glass, staring across the dark city toward the sound of distant waves lapping at Blackwater's shore. Far beyond lay Casterly Rock, where her father forged knives of coin and cunning. She prayed his next raven carried armies. Mark down. Adam C. Dawn spread pale pink over Dragonstone's jagged towers. Melisandre stood on a windswept battlement with Stannis, red silk gown snapping in salt-laden gale. She extended hands toward the rising sun, lips moving in ancient Valyrian prayers. Stannis watched, jaw clenched. "The Lord of Light shows a path painted in flame," Melisandre said, eyes reflecting the dawn fire. "You are Azor Ahai reborn, my king. Only you can drive the darkness." Stannis ground teeth. "Flames show what they will. They showed my brother spitting in my face." "Then turned." Melisandre turned, copper hair whipping. "Renly's brightness blinds men to his shallowness. In fire I saw a shadow, Your Grace. A shadow with your face strangling his. The false stag must fall." Stannis' heart jerked. He thought of their mother's stillborn sons, of years overshadowed by Robert's easy laughter and Renly's charm. He felt hunger, not for power but for justice sharpened to vengeance. "If the realm refuses truth," he said quietly, "then it will learn truth beneath my banners." "Truth is a sword," Melisandre whispered. "All you need is the hilt." She placed warm fingers upon his gauntlet. "Let me give it form." Late that night, Stannis entered the chamber of the painted table alone, save for Melisandre. Shadows danced over continents carved in glowing jade by candlelight. She bade him draw his sword, Lightbringer, newly forged at her instruction, its dull blade coated in sticky pitch. He plunged it into a brazier. Flames tongue-kissed iron, then roared scarlet. He withdrew it blazing, feeling heat yet sensing no pain. Melisandre's voice sang a hymn older than Maester's quills. When she finished, the sword's surface smoldered as if alive. "Ride with fire," she breathed. "Your shadow will ride before you." Mark down. Endo. In Harrenhal's melted towers, Tywin Lannister convened his war council. Smoke from peat fires coiled near rafters, charred by dragon flame centuries old. Sir Kevan muttered over supply manifests, while Sir Adam Marbrand traced routes across a map pinned with lion-headed nails. Tyrion Lannister sat apart, sipping wine, mismatched eyes thoughtful. "Ravens confirm Stark banners gather at Moat Cailin," Kevan said. 10,000 at least." 10,000, Tywin echoed, voice stone cold. "And the boy marches south?" "Within the fortnight, yes." Tywin drummed gold-ringed fingers. "Then we strike before he crosses the neck. Harrenhal will disgorge 20,000 seasoned men. Roose Bolton remains uncommitted. A letter promising Dreadfort dominance may sway him." Tyrion coughed delicately. "And the Riverlords? They'll flock to Stark or Baratheon banners once we ignite their fields." "Then into Wanchao." "Riverlanders bend beneath fear as reeds to storm," Tywin said. "Burn their villages, hang their aldermen along the roads, and they will beg for Lannister justice." Tyrion swirled wine. "A sound if brutal plan, father. Yet every charred farm breeds 3 outraged sons." Perhaps a lighter touch. Tywin's gaze skewered him. Spare me lectures in mercy from a dwarf who shagged half of lice. He rose, crimson cloak sweeping. We march at dawn. The lions will feast on wolf, and then we shall cage Renly's glowing heart. Nenshaw. Tyrion bowed from his seat, expression unreadable. Later he slipped into his private chamber where Shay waited behind bolted door. She touched his cheek. Your father plans war. When does he plan anything else? Tyrion sighed, setting aside goblet. Pack, my sweet. Harrenhal's hospitality wanes once Lannister swords leave its halls. Markdown. Enderau. At Moat Cailin, green-black waters of the neck oozed around moss-slick stones. The fortress's squat towers rose like rotten teeth from swampy earth. Robb arrived first with the outriders, gray wind splashing through brackish puddles. Ravens perched upon crumbling battlements, cawing alarm. Within hours, banners fluttered along the causeway. The sunburst of Karstark, the merman of Manderley, the roaring bear of Mormont. Camps sprouted beyond the walls. Smelled of horse sweat and wood smoke. Catelyn walked ramparts with Maester Luwin, surveying. Moat Cailin's strengths are its horrors. She mused. Disease, mud, pestilent water. Yet, if we linger, we sicken. Then, Robb joined them. We will not linger. By week's end we push south, strike Tywin's scouts, and break through the Twins. Catelyn touched his arm. Lord Walder may tax passage dearly, gold or hostage. I will pay in coin, not blood. Robb's jaw hardened. Hostages breed resentment. That night, campfires winked across marshland. Drums thumped low, echoing heartbeats. Robb paced his command tent, poring over river maps, Theon jesting at his elbow. You think to outfox Tywin? Theon smirked. Better men have tried and rotted for their trouble. Robb felt heat rise. Better men lacked wolf blood. Theon laughed. Call it what you will. Just leave glory enough for your bannermen. Gray wind growled from shadows, silencing further taunt. Theon backed away muttering. Outside, Sir Edmure Tully arrived with 500 riverlords, trout and Mallister oars, bracken stallions, blackwood ravens. He clasped Robb's forearm. Your father's honor shines over the trident. We cast our blades beside it. Robb exhaled, feeling burden lighten. We ride at dawn 2 days hence. Mark down. And then. Miles away at the Green Fork, a lone mendicant shuffled along the dusty road. He wore ragged brown robes, hood concealing shorn scalp. He paused at an oak, set down begging bowl, and knelt. After scanning horizons, he produced a scroll marked with twin sigils, lion and manticore, and buried it among roots. He murmured, "For the mountain," then continued south. Mark down. And now and. Within King's Landing, Ned's daily routine tightened like a garrote. Letters to Robb, to Catelyn, to Davos on the Fury, audiences with restless merchants, disputes between Tyrell and Baratheon quartermasters. Yet each task maintained the fragile order he prayed would hold until reason prevailed. One afternoon, Sir Barristan approached, face shadowed. A squire overheard hardened sellswords boasting of new coin. They wear no sigil, yet their weapons bear the lion's paw. When questioned, they vanished. Men? Slint? Ned guessed. His men remain loyal. Selmy said. But gold flows through cracks. That night Ned met the city watch captain in a candlelit armory. Slint spat. Half my men fight for bread, not banners. Double their pay and you buy their hearts, till coin runs out. Then I shall triple their hope, Ned replied. He drafted new decrees. Pardons for petty thieves if they join the watch, grain stipends to families of guards, strict penalties for bribery. He signed with direwolf seal. Hope, he told himself, costs nothing but courage, and sometimes a treasury allotment. Outside, rain fell warm and steady, washing dust from streets. Ned lifted his face to the storm, imagining snow falling over Winterfell. He wondered whether Robb felt the same rain through the eyes of grey wind, bond between warg and wolf spanning distance beyond Maester's reckoning. Markdown. And one. On Dragonstone the night before the new moon, Melisandre led Stannis to the shore. Black waves crashed. She bade Sir Davos bring forth a small rowboat. In its stern lay a pouch of sand, coarse as groundbone. Carhallan rays will swallow light. She murmured. We give them darkness in return. Stannis watched wordless as she spilled sand into water. Clouds smothered moon glow. Pitch black gloom swallowed sea and sky. Then from Melisandre's shadow stepped another, an inky silhouette of Stannis himself, blade of pure night in hand. It stepped onto water as though solid ground and glided away, silent toward Renly's camp at Storm's End. Davos shuddered, crossing himself. Stannis closed eyes, telling himself duty over disgust. Thunder rolled distantly. Markdown. Enherwan. Renly's host camped upon Shipbreaker Bay's hills, green pennants streaming. Tents of Tyrell silk dotted meadows like bright blossoms. Inside the king's pavilion, Renly shared wine with Loras and Brienne of Tarth, his sworn rainbow guard. Plans for assault on Storm's End's walls lay scattered on table. Once the Baratheon seat falls, Loras said, your elder brother must bend knee. Stannis bends only iron, Renly replied. I fear he'll break before he bows. A gust snuffed half the braziers. Shadows writhed. Brienne's hand flew to sword. The pavilion's wall darkened, a silhouette seeping through canvas. Renly spun, grabbing the antler helm upon his cot. But the shadow moved faster, blade of black smoke sliding into flesh. Renly gasped, eyes wide, blood blossoming across green silk. He fell, crown toppling with metallic chime. Brienne screamed, rushing forward, but the shadow was gone. She cradled Renly's head, sobbing, my king? My king? My king? Loras stood transfixed, horror blanking his face. Outside, camp guards rushed in to find chaos. Rainbow Guard dueling each other in confusion, Tyrell Knights demanding answers. Chaos rippled outward like storm waves. By dawn, Renly's army fractured, half pledging to Margaery and Lord Mace, half stunned into disarray. The Tyrells gathered their banners, retreating toward Highgarden with Renly's body in a golden cart. But a portion of the host, knightly houses sworn less to roses than to crowns, rode south to Stannis, claiming the Lord of Light had judged rightful king. Rumor reached King's Landing by Raven before noon. Ned read the scrap thrice, blood-draining. He summoned the small council, voice hoarse. Renly Baratheon is dead. Slain by shadow or steel, facts diverge. Pycelle croaked prayers. Baelish smirked behind sleeve. Mace Tyrell absent. Varys' expression slipped, a mask cracked. Stannis sails with Renly's remnants, Ned continued. Half the Tyrell strength withdraws. We face siege sooner than feared. Selmy struck table. We screen Blackwater with chain boom. We line walls with scorpions. And we pray Stark host breaks Lannister line before Stannis arrives. Baelish smiled thinly. Or we court Tyrell roses anew. Marry Sansa Stark to Willis Tyrell perhaps. Seal alliance with Northern Grace and Southern Gold. Love planted in good soil grows swiftly. Ned's pulse thundered. Sansa is not coin to trade. Better coin than corpse, Baelish murmured. But Tyrell doves had flown beyond reach. Their spies soon whispered of alliance with Lannisters to avenge Renly's suspicious death. Ned realized the realm had shifted in one night, as though a board reset by unseen hand. Markdown. Now. Robb learned of Renly's death while crossing the Green Fork. He stood upon the riverbank, letter trembling in gauntlet. Water churned brown around horses' legs as men drove stakes for temporary pontoon bridges. Catelyn read the missive aloud to assembled lords. Renly Baratheon slain by sorcery, so Stannis captains claim. Tyrell host retreats, Stannis massing at Storm's End. King's Landing vulnerable. The Great John spat into floodplain mud. One less stag to chase. But Robb's eyes narrowed. Stannis leads men hardened by sea sieges. And Tywin, where rides he now? Lord Roose Bolton stepped forward, pale as moonlight. Scouts report Lannister outriders near the Twins. They may attempt to cut our passage across the Trident. Robb nodded curtly. Then we split. Roose, take the foot north of Seaguard. Draw Tywin's eye. I ride west with cavalry to River Run, relieve my uncle's siege and burn lions from Riverlands. We converge before harvest's end. Bolton bowed. In the dimming light, his smile seemed thin as knife edge. Mark down. And Night settled over King's Landing heavy as sodden wool. Ned sat alone in his solar, candles guttering. A soft knock sounded. Varys entered, hesitating. I bring inhospitable tidings. The spider said. Tyrell envoys treat with Lord Tywin even now. They will march roses north beneath lion roar. Ned's shoulders slumped. Then the realm bleeds anew. But there is a balm. Varys produced a scroll. A Pentoshi Magister offers truce. Daenerys Targaryen proposes alliance. Dragons for thrones. Die. Ned's hand trembled as he accepted document. He pictured children roasted in Harrenhal's keep by dragonfire of old. No. Fire for fire ends in ashes. Then we stand on brink. Varys whispered. Choose your blaze, Lord of Winter. Ned stared at flickering flame, recalled Bran's laughter, echoing down Winterfell corridors. He clenched the scroll, then tossed it into brazier. Paper curled black, sparks spiraling upward like doomed hopes. Mark down. Now. In the depths beneath the Red Keep, soundless corridors led to a vault, sealed by iron bars. Ned descended torch in hand, accompanied by Sir Barristan Tartawat. They halted before the massive plain-wrapped shape of ice, ancestral greatsword of House Stark. Ned laid hand upon the leather-bound hilt, remembered Eddard the quiet wolf before him, Brandon the fiery elder. He drew the sword. Blade shimmered pale blue in torchlight. Steel alone will not save us, Selmy said quietly. No, Ned agreed, hefting weight. But it may yet carve a path for truth. Mark down. And now. By the next sunset, stifling heat smothered King's Landing. Banners drooped. The populace rioted outside the great sept, clamoring for bread, wine, release from dread. Ned and Slint rode among them, distributing barley loaves from wagon beds. Some fists unclenched. Others threw stones. Ned's cloak tore, but he held no grudge. Hunger, he knew, turns men into beasts faster than hatred. Back within the keep, Sansa visited her father's chambers, eyes red-rimmed. They whisper I'll wed Joffrey still, to heal rifts. She choked. But he... Ned knelt, wrapping arms around her. No oath binds you to cruelty, he said. I will see you safe. Trust me. She buried face in his shoulder. Tears dampened his tunic. After she left, Ned drafted secret orders to Sir Dontos Hollard. Prepare a riverboat under cover of night, ready to bear Sansa downriver to Maidenpool should siege towers appear. He sealed the letter. Marked down. Underwind. Elsewhere, in a hidden room of the House of Black and White in Bravos, a man with two faces donned a new one. A sellsword's unremarkable visage. He plucked a parchment from ebony shelf. A contract bearing sigil of twin-crossed lions. He pocketed it, whispered, Valar Morghulis, and stepped onto a ship bound for Westeros. Marked down. Endero. At dawn, ravens screamed above the Red Keep. Ned climbed a tower stair to the western battlements. Spyglass in hand, the sea horizon glittered, empty. But inland, a dust plume smudged sky, and armies approached. He lowered the glass, steadying breath. Behind him, Varys arrived, panting. First banners sighted. Gold lions, green roses, Tyrell Lannister host, days away. Ned nodded, gripping ice. He thought of Robb marching, Stannis sailing, dragons soaring. All pieces converging upon the same scarred board. Winter's game. He whispered a silent prayer to the nameless gods of ice and fire alike. that somewhere beyond looming chaos, the pack would survive. Gray daylight filtered across the city once more, but it seemed to Ned Stark that night had already fallen, and every candle henceforward would be lit only upon graves. Still, he straightened shoulders, stepped toward the stair, and prepared to meet the darkness head-on, a lone wolf carrying the hopes of an entire kingdom in the glint of his ancient steel. The morning mists that clung to King's Landing peeled away slowly, like gauze tugged from a half-healed wound. Ned Stark stood on the western battlements, boot soles gritty with wind-blown sand, and watched dawn paint the rooftops blood orange. From every chimney, pale smoke rose in nervous braids. From every alley, the muted growl of hunger drifted upward. Somewhere in Fleabottom, a baker's boy shouted the price of a stale loaf, and a woman with cracked lips wept when her coin was not enough. The city reminded Ned of a wolf pup starved too long. Still alive, still dangerous, willing to gnaw its own paw to escape the trap. He turned when Sir Barristan Selmy cleared his throat. The old knight remained straight as a spear despite the hour, white cloak whipping against steel greaves. "Lord Hand," Selmy said, voice low. "Patrols report 37 ships bearing the Lion of Lannister and Rose of Tyrell off the coast of Duskendale. Within 5 days they'll anchor at Blackwater Bay." Ned drew a breath that rasped like winter through bare branches. "And the river gate?" "Barricaded as you ordered," Selmy replied. "Chains are near forged for the boom. Yet iron and timber win sieges only if hearts hold. Half the small folk still curse Renly's death and blame Stannis, but they've begun to blame us too, any hand that fails to feed them." "Bah." Ned studied the haze that cloaked the bay. "Double the bread lines," he said. "Tell the watch to keep order with words first, clubs second. Steel never heals an empty belly." Selmy inclined his head, but his eyes strayed to ice strapped across Ned's back. Ancient Valyrian steel gleamed dull blue, and if Lord Tywin arrives before the chain is ready, then the wolf bears fangs. Ned felt the weight of the greatsword settle like fate across his shoulders. "Pray, we need them not." South of Harrenhal, beneath willows whose branches draped the green fork like funeral banners, a Lannister outrider named Sir Lyle Craighall surveyed the river. His battered helm gleamed like dull brass in the wet dawn. Across the ford, banners of the Trout and Direwolf snapped in early wind. 1,000 stark bowmen in muddy cloaks stood watchful, arrowheads winking. Behind them, a forest of spears emerged from mist, more men than Craighall cared to count. He spat. "Wolves in the riverlands," he muttered, narrow eyes flicking to the caltrop-strewn crossing. "Too many by half." A rider splashed up beside him. Sir Adam Marbrand's cloak swirled damply. "Tywin wants numbers," Marbrand said. "How many foot? How many horses? How many days until they move?" Craighall squinted. "Enough to make any crossing a slaughter." He chewed his lip. "They'll march west, I wager, to break our siege at River Run." "Or east," Marbrand countered. "To bait us toward Maidenpool and leave the twins unguarded." Craighall shrugged. "A wolf's path twists. Best we ride hard and warn the lion." Menamni saw. They galloped south, sodden reeds whipping their legs, not seeing the gray-cloaked scouts who watched from trees and silently counted hoofbeats. Moments after the riders passed, one scout loosed a sparrow-colored raven toward Robb Stark's camp. Robb himself knelt in damp grass outside his command tent, hands slick with mud as he traced the bend of the river on a rough scraped map. Catelyn bent beside him, crimson hair escaping her hood. The cold smell of the neck still clung to her cloak, mingling with horse sweat. "The Lannisters march fast," she said. "If they reach the Red Fork before we do, River Run could fall." "Uncle Brynden will not yield," Robb answered. But his tone held tension like a drawn bow. He tapped the river line. "We move tonight, light cavalry first, then foot." He glanced at Lord Rickard Karstark, who stood arms folded, expression carved from granite. "Karstark men guard the baggage. I want no lion claws at our heels." Karstark inclined his head, gray beard bristling. "They'll find only teeth, my prince." Gray wind stalked nearby, ears flattened at the hum of war. The dire wolf's shoulders rolled with restless power. His amber gaze never left the shifting lines of men and horses. Caitlin reached to scratch behind his ear. Old habit. But the wolf bared fangs. She withdrew, heart quickening. Even the beasts feel it, she murmured. Robb rolled the map. Then let the realm feel it too. He stood, brushing dirt from knees, and strode to where trumpeters waited. As the golden sun broke through clouds, the first horn blast lifted, deep and mournful. A second answered from the north ridge, a third from the west. Men stirred. Cookfires died. Standards were hoisted. In moments the plain awoke. Iron-shod hooves, clatter of shields, clank of harness. The young wolf, no, the prince of winter, mounted his courser and raised his sword. Dust rose behind the van as they moved south like a coiling glacier, cold and unstoppable. Beyond the narrow sea, in the shadowed berth of the cog silver serpent, Daenerys Targaryen pressed her palm to the warm plank beside the hold hatch. Beneath, her dragons shifted restlessly. Drogon's snorting huff, Viserions' clicking jaws, Rhaegal's throaty hiss. The ship creaked, but Captain Exano assured her the hull still held strong despite 3 beasts now the size of ponies. The sea air carried scents of brine and tar, but to Dany it smelled of home long lost and power newly found. She watched gulls wheel over the dull waves and imagined the coastline of Westeros beyond the horizon. Green islands, white cliffs, red mountains. Somewhere there Ned Stark still lived, so her spies said, and Lannister and Baratheon hosts braced for war. The realm trembled, and into that tremble she would descend like a promise of fire reborn. Ser Jorah sat near the rail, rough beard catching spindrift. Many banners fly in the west, he said. Now is chaos. The time a dragon takes back what was stolen. She brushed silver hair from her cheek. A dragon. She echoed softly. Or 3. A sudden squall darkened the sky. Ropes strained. Men cursed. Dany's pulse quickened. From the aft hold erupted Drogon's roar. Deep, hungry. The deck pitched. Sailors crossed themselves. Dany closed her eyes and whispered Valyrian lullabies. The roar subsided, but not the tension behind it. Storm and fire, she thought. They are twin mouths of the same beast. On Dragonstone's windswept causeway, Davos Seaworth stood at Stannis' side as the king surveyed Storm's End's distant walls across the bay. Aflame with sunrise, gulls cried overhead, and the tide lapped the basalt shore in slow, greedy strokes. That castle resists, Stannis growled. Sir Courtney Penrose refuses parley. Davos shifted uncomfortably, remembering the onion smuggler's paths he once sailed to relieve these very walls. The men inside are loyal to Renly's memory, he said. It will take more than siege towers to sway their hearts. Stannis' jaw flexed. Then we tear out their hearts. Before Davos could answer, Melisandre approached, vermilion gown whipping like a banner of blood. Her eyes burned with zeal. All men's hearts beat at the Lord's command, she said. Let one beat cease, and the gate will open. Stannis lifted a hand. Enough shadows, woman. I want walls breached by stone and courage, not whispers. The Lord of Light does not whisper. Melisandre smiled. He chooses, and he has chosen you. Silence fell, broken only by surf. Davos met Stannis' gaze. The king's eyes were tired, rimmed red from sleepless nights, but within them burned something unquenchable. Not zeal exactly, Davos thought. Something narrower. Purpose. Far to the north, a different purpose drove Jon Snow across the icy courtyard of Castle Black. The wind had claws tonight, raking his cheeks raw. He pulled his cloak tight and quickened his pace toward the Lord Commander's tower. Inside, a brazier glowed. Jeor Mormont leaned over a map etched with charcoal. Wildling fires multiplied, he told Jon, tapping areas beyond the Frostfangs. A single king unites them. If Mance Rayder truly moves every clan, then the wall will face more than raiders soon. Jon felt the map's frozen rivers and jagged peaks like old friends. We need eyes farther north, he said. Let me ride with Corin Halfhand. The Shadow Tower Rangers know the passes. Mormont regarded him. A Stark's blood quickens at word of war, but I need a raven's steadiness, not a wolf's hunger. John swallowed. When winter comes, steadiness must ride with hunger, or the wall falls. The old bear's stare was heavy, but at last he nodded. You will go with Halfhand at dawn, bring back truth, Snow, and live to tell it. John bowed. As he turned to leave, he thought of Robb somewhere in the south brandishing sword against lions. He wondered if Robb felt this same pull. Brother to brother, two specks on the vast cloth of war. In King's Landing the night grew muggy. Torches spat embers along the palace walkways, illuminating corridors stuffed with soldiers half drunk on borrowed courage. Sansa Stark leaned against a carved balustrade in the maiden vault, eyes searching the courtyard below. Ser Dontos Hollard appeared in the shadows, breath sweet with wine. Lady Sansa, he whispered, bowing awkwardly. The boat waits, as Lord Hand commanded. But the guards, too many tonight. They drink Casterly wine, the wrong smell for sailing. Sansa's heart beat fast. She clutched her shawl. Tomorrow night then, or the next. Dontos squeezed her hand. Have faith, little dove. Sansa watched him totter away. And in that moment the courtyard's torchlight reminded her of bonfires in Winterfell during first snow festivals. Safe, innocent, worlds ago. A tear slipped down her cheek. Behind her, footsteps approached. She stiffened as Queen Cersei's voice drifted from the doorway. Pretty Sansa weeps, and the world sighs. Cersei crooned, Come, child. I need your sweet face at court tomorrow when our Tyrell bride arrives. Sansa turned slowly. I thought the Tyrells rode for Highgarden. Not all. Cersei's smile cut like broken glass. Sir Garland escorts Lady Margaery to the city, to claim what Renly lost. And you, dear, shall sit beside her, 2 roses before the thorns. Sansa bent her head, tears caught in lashes. She felt the game move again, unseen hands placing her like a bauble on a gilded shelf. But in her sleeve, a small dagger, gift from Arya before they parted at the stable loft, pressed reassuringly against her wrist. Even roses hide thorns, she thought. Outside the city's western walls, Ned Stark rode to inspect the half-finished boom chain. Smoke from forge fires coiled into the night sky. Master Hallyne of the Alchemists' Guild met him. Robes scorched, face smudged with green phosphorescence. My Lord Hand, Hallyne rasped, bowing too low. Wildfire quotas nearly met. 30 jars delivered each dawn. By Siege Eve, we'll have thrice that. Ma'ams. Ned's stomach twisted at the sickly glow clinging to Hallyne's beard. Wildfire was Aerys's madness, made molten. No wildfire on the walls, he ordered. Only the chain. But wildfire can burn ships to cinders, and burn the city with them. Ned snapped. Stannis' fleet nears by river, Tyrell's by sea. One spark in the wrong barrel, and King's Landing becomes Harrenhal reborn. Hallyne's lip trembled. Then we store it beneath the Guildhall. For your word alone. Ned nodded curtly. As he turned away, a cold gust rose from the black water, carrying the keen scent of salt and rot. He wondered how many ghosts the city would birth before this was done. Ghosts already walked Harrenhal's silent halls, where Tyrion Lannister paced along a ridgeline parapet, restless after a council with his father. Below, Tywin's army campfires burned like scattered embers across the ruined castle's shadow. The air was thick with the smell of horse offal and boiled oats. Bronn leaned against a crenellation, crossbow in hand. Your sister claims King's Landing herself soon, he said. Letters say she brings flowers. Flowers with thorns, Tyrion answered, rubbing his temple. Tyrell's ally with us to avenge Renly, but they'll strangle us if we let them wrap the vines too close. Bronn spat over the wall. Best not get strangled then. Tyrion managed a wry smile. Thank you, my sellsword sage. He gazed north. Robb Stark moves faster than father thinks. If he crosses the Trident in force, the lions may find wolves already gnawing at the rock. A flutter of raven wings interrupted. A black bird alighted, scroll tied to its leg. Tyrion retrieved the missive, brow furrowing as he read. "Speak of dire wolves," he muttered, shoving parchment into his doublet. "Brawn. Ready horses. We ride at once. To where?" "To the place father least expects. One step ahead of the wolf. At Moat Cailin, the swamp stank of decay and promise." Reed canoes arrived under moonlight, and Mira Reed climbed the small rock shelf where Robb's guard fire glimmered. She bowed, long brown braid brushing her shoulder. "My prince," she said. "The Crannog men serve the Starks. We carry word." Robb ushered her to the map table inside a saw-log hall. "Speak freely." Mira's gray-green eyes shone. "The neck floods early. Lannister outriders drown like kittens if they follow. Our snares wait in every fen. Then the gods send us shields of water." Robb replied. He traced a path through the fens. "Guide my vanguard across safe causeways. We'll leave false tracks east to lure Tywin into the bogs, then strike his flank near Raventree." Mira's grin flashed. "The bog devours lions, and wolves feast after," Theon Greyjoy added, swaggering into the hall. He clapped Mira's shoulder with unnecessary familiarity. "Careful, girl. Lion bones splinter in hungry throats." "Bow." Mira shrugged him off, unamused. Robb shot Theon a warning look. The crack in their friendship widened another finger width. That night, rain battered hide tents. Caitlin knelt at her travel shrine, whispering the 7 faces. Then the old gods. Then her father's name. And finally, Ned's. She pictured his face grim with duty, and prayed the same dawn might yet see them reunited. Alive. Storm clouds gathered above Storm's End. Cannoning thunder shook the ramparts. Inside the Godswood courtyard, Sir Courtney Penrose paced beneath the balking boughs. He had held this castle in Renly's name. Now he held it for Renly's ghost. When a herald announced a parley, Courtney donned chain and emerald cloak, and strode to the gate. There, beneath the portcullis, stood Davos Seaworth unarmed. Sir Courtney eyed him. "An envoy of onions." Davos inclined his head. "And an old friend of this castle. My king asks safe conduct. Speak with him and spare needless deaths." Penrose's jaw tightened. "Your king? I swore to Renly Baratheon. I will not yield to the man who stole his life with sorcery." Davos opened his palms. "My hands carry no shadow." Penrose turned away. "Tell Stannis the walls of Storm's End remember better men. If he wishes my surrender, bring his daughter in chains, Renly's daughter." Davos frowned. Renly had no trueborn child. Penrose paused. "Tell that to the girl he fathered before Queens, living hidden at Evenfall Hall." He vanished into the gatehouse, leaving Davos windblown and worried. When Davos returned to Dragonstone, Melisandre greeted him with a knowing smile. "Secrets breed shadows," she said. "You carry one." He stepped back. "If Stannis kills infants to claim thrones, he is no better than the dragonlords of old." Melisandre's gaze was alight. "Blood is the key. Royal blood opens the way to victory." Davos felt the chill not of sea wind this time, but of destiny slipping beyond his grasp. In that instant he resolved, "If darkness rules this path, I will steer Lord Stannis back toward light or die trying." The Blackwater stank of low tide by the time the first Tyrell galleys hove into view. Ned stood upon the King's Gate tower, spyglass steady. Emerald sails billowed, each emblazoned with golden rose. Among them, heavier war dramans bore Lannister crimson tot. No chain across the river yet. Only barges of linked iron being winched from the foundry dock. Too slow. Behind Ned, Pycelle puffed up the stairs, robes dragging. "Maester Howland begs you reconsider the wildfire plan." He wheezed. "A short barrage might deter." "No wildfire on water," Ned repeated. Pycelle dabbed sweat. "Then may the 7 guide your steel." He tottered back down. Ned lowered the glass. In the haze he saw Stannis' black sails beyond the headland too. 2 fleets converging like jaws. The city a morsel. He exhaled. A sudden flutter near his ear. A messenger bird? Breathless runner behind it. The boy knelt, delivering a parchment signed by Sir Barristan. Tyrell entourage arrived at the river gate demanding audience. Lady Margaery with Sir Garland and a dozen guards pledged to enter the Red Keep under flag of truce. Ned folded the missive. Each step invites a snare, he murmured. Still, to refuse would spark feud interior while war loomed exterior. He signaled the nearest captain. Escort Lady Tyrell to the throne room, but keep the queen far from her. The throne room smelled of wax and sweat. Lannister red drape still hung on half the pillars. Renly's stag standard fluttered above the dais. Ned felt the irony bite as Margaery Tyrell entered in flowing green silk, a circlet of buds upon her brown curls. Sir Garland flanked her, hand on sword hilt, but eyes polite. They bowed. "My lord hand," Margaery said, voice sweet as ripe peach. "My family mourns my husband, yet grief must yield to duty. The realm bleeds. We offer roses, not thorns, in alliance against Lannister betrayals." Ned arched a brow. "You ride with Lannister sails even now." "A necessity," Margaery replied. "Sir Garland escorted me through lion seas, else his sister become flotsam." She tilted her head. "But I come bearing a proposal. Tyrell grain to feed the city, Tyrell levies to man the walls, Tyrell coin to pay the watch. If you recognize my claim as Lady Regent until the realm chooses a single lawful king." Behind Ned, Varys shifted. Lady Regents seldom shared power. Ned considered. If he refused, famine and revolt. If he accepted, the Tyrells would lay roots deep. He spoke slowly. "Grain and men are welcome. Coin likewise. Yet the crown remains undecided. I will not trade one tyranny for another." "None." Margaery's smile never faltered. "We ask not for crowns. Only a place in the garden while winter passes." Inwardly Ned sighed. Gardens grew wild if left untended. "Very well. Provisional alliance. Bread for peace." Sir Garland bowed. "You have our swords. Let us bury Renly by the gods' mercy, then stand together against true enemies." But when they withdrew, little fingers sidled close, lips twisting. "Give a rose one day, and roots crack stone by next moon. Mind that your garden does not strangle the wolf." Ned rubbed temples. "I mind many things, Petter. See that you mind yours." 2 dawns later, the young wolf reached the twins. Gray stone towers glared over the swollen trident, flags of House Frey limply trailing. Walder Frey's voice croaked from battlements as Robb rode through the gatehouse. Inside, the great hall buzzed with chattering Freys, sons, daughters, bastards, grandchildren. Old Walder lolled on his carved chair. "What brings the north to my door once more?" he wheezed. "Last I wed your uncle and aunt, and got naught but cold thanks." Robb stepped forward. "I bring gold and fealty, Lord Frey. Grant passage, join my war, and the Starks will honor our bond." "Da." Gold rusts. Fealty fades. Walder's milky eyes gleamed. "Marriage binds tighter." Robb stiffened. "I am pledged already by oath to—" "That oath worthless now Renly fell." Walder cackled. "Stark's son, wed one of mine, and the bridge is yours." Catelyn's heart sank. She saw Robb's jaw clench, eyes flick to his mother, to Theon, to the banners waiting beyond castle walls. The room held its breath. Then Robb exhaled. "Name the daughter," he said quietly, "and I will wed her." Catelyn's pulse hammered. She thought of Jane Westerling's gentle smiles across earlier campfires, of her son's secret vows. But war left little for love. She squeezed Robb's arm. Silent comfort. Silent warning. Walder clapped, spittle flying. "Roslyn then." "Sweet as summer fruit. The bridge is yours by sunset." Across that bridge poured northern steel like a river reversing flow. Karstark spears, tall hard axes, Manderley knights atop destriers white as foam. They pitched camp on the far bank while Robb parlayed final details. And by nightfall the twins' gate closed behind them, another promise chained to a wolf's stride. In his command tent, Robb removed his gauntlets and rubbed aching knuckles. Caitlin entered, candle in hand. "My son," she whispered, voice raw. "I pray this bargain saves more lives than it wounds." Robb closed his eyes. Lives saved, or lives spent later tenfold. Walder's price was heavy but necessary. Necessity often plays hangman, she said. "But I am proud you carry its burden." Gray wind nosed the tent flap, amber eyes watching them. Robb stroked his dark fur. "We ride at dawn for River Run," he said. "Let tomorrow's sun find us on the Red Fork." In Harrenhal, Tywin Lannister woke to word that the Starks had crossed the bridge unopposed. His fist slammed the map table, scattering carved lion markers. "Freys have teeth only for carrion," he growled. Sir Kevan paled. "Our scouts saw the northern vanguard heading west. Then we marched south at once," Tywin said. "Leave Harrenhal to the crows." Tyrion lounged nearby. "And if Robb cuts east behind you, father?" Two armies chasing tails. Tywin glared. "You have suggestion, imp." "Send me south with outriders," Tyrion said. "I'll hold the crossing at Maidenpool with Sellswords," draw Stark's glance. "Meanwhile, you strike River Run, relieve siege, and trap young wolf between forks." Tywin considered. "You gamble lives like dice." "A smaller wager than the crown," Tyrion replied. "Besides, someone must keep Cersei from roasting King's Landing in wildfire. And she listens to me." "Occasionally," Kevan exhaled. "Very occasionally." But Tywin nodded. "Take 500 horse. Ride tonight." As Tyrion bowed, the Lord added, "Fail, and I'll hang you next to your sellswords." Tyrion smirked. Family tradition. Beyond the wall's shadow, Jon Snow rode east with Qhorin Halfhand and 3 other rangers. Frost glittered on sparse scrub. Their breath plumed like ghost smoke. On the third night, they camped in an ice-rimmed ravine. Firelight flickered over Qhorin's scars. The wildlings mass at the frost fangs. Halfhand said, half-whisper, "Mance Raider seeks a pass here." He jabbed a charcoal finger at a cliff sketched in frost. "If they break through before the march, the wall's flank unravels." Jon stared. "We must warn the watch." "We will," Halfhand agreed. "But first we cut out the eyes guiding Mance. A handful of wargs spy from eagle and wolf. Kill the man behind the beast is blind." Jon remembered Bran, remembered summer days chasing squirrels while Bran laughed. A strange ache pierced him. "Then we climbed the ridge at dawn." Snowflakes drifted. Somewhere in the distant dark, a horn sounded once, long and low. Rangers stiffened. 2 blasts would mean wildlings. 3 white walkers. But one, just one. Halfhand looked at Jon. "Riders of the watch," he said. "Or else, southern men strayed too far north." They listened. No second blast came. Silence thick as rime closed over them. Jon gripped Longclaw's pommel as though to squeeze out answers. In the Red Keep's highest tower, Ned Stark studied the map of the Blackwater again. Candlewax pooled. His eyes burned from sleeplessness, yet his mind refused rest. He heard the pronouncements of Maester's past. How wars turn on choices made in midnight hours, when hearts waver. He thought of Robb's march, Sansa's peril, Arya's wild freedom, of Bran's letters describing wolves at his side, of Rickon's untempered rage, and of Caitlin, somewhere along a muddy road, guarding their future between cupped hands. A knock came. He bid entry. Sir Barristan stepped in, face drawn. "Ravens from the wall," he said. "Lord Commander warns of wildling host. Says they march south." Ned's breath caught. "How many?" "Countless," he writes. "And others stirring behind. Winter, on 2 fronts." Ned closed his eyes. The smell of snow drifted through memory, mingling with sea wind and wildfire fumes. "We fight here," Selmy said. "But winters are for the north to face." Ned opened his eyes. Winters are for all men to face. He lifted ice, feeling its cold hum. I once told a boy that the man who passes sentence should swing the sword. Perhaps it is time a kingdom learned the lesson. Will you ride north? Selmy asked, startled. Not yet. Ned sheathed the blade. First, we keep this city alive. Then we ride wherever darkness falls deepest. Da. And outside, as the first Tyrell galleon furled her sails upon Blackwater's tide and Stannis drums echoed from the river mouth, a single snowflake drifted down through the humid air of King's Landing, melted upon the stone, and was gone. Silent herald of the long night creeping inexorably south. Ka. The first cold gleam of dawn washed pale along the eastern horizon, but the vast army encamped beside the Red Fork stirred long before any rooster crowed. In the warrens of tents and cook fires, northern spearmen splashed icy river water on their faces, gnawed yesterday's crusts, muttered half-dreamed prayers, and began to shoulder mail and boiled leather jerkins. The hoarse calls of sergeants threaded through the morning mist, counting off companies by the dozens, then by the hundreds, until the camp shook itself awake like a great gray bear. Robb Stark, Prince of Winter, emerged from his pavilion beneath the tattered direwolf banner and breathed deep the scent of dew and horse sweat and anticipation. Gray wind padded at his side, muzzle already crimson from some unlucky hare. The direwolf's ears pricked westward, toward the dull thunder carrying faint across the trees. Drums, Robb knew. Lannister drums, driving a host toward the tombs of the Trident in forced march. He paused beside the tall iron-shod standard that bore both direwolf and leaping trout. His father's sigil twinned with House Tully, and ran a gloved thumb over the wolf's cruel steel teeth. Behind him, Catelyn arrived wrapped in a bear fur cloak, auburn hair unbraided, eyes ringed dark from sleepless maps. She watched her son quietly, noting the squared shoulders, the haunted set of his mouth. He looks older each sunrise, she thought, as though the armor itself adds a year each time he dons it. But when Robb turned at her approach, she still saw the boy who once hid with Grey Wind beneath Maester Luwin's desk to escape Bath Night. "Mother," he said, voice low. The Outriders report Tywin broke his siege of River Run after moonrise and angles north along the Red Fork. We will meet him a day sooner than planned. Catelyn pressed her fingers to her lips. And Edmure? Uncle holds fast within River Run, Robb replied. Blackfish leads the sallies. But Tywin means to cut us from the castle, swing east, and smash our rear while the river is at our backs. He glanced at the brooding sky. Rain may sweep in before nightfall. If the ford floods, we fight with water closing behind us. Then we do not let it flood, Catelyn said simply. Your grandsire taught me rivers have minds. Coax them rather than bar them. Ride an hour upriver. Fell a stand of willows into the shallows, and the flow slows enough for men to cross. You need not hold a single ford. You need 3 shallow streams. Slow him, harry him, wither him before he looks upon your shield wall. Ben now once. Robb's lips curved faintly. The weeping willows might well weep lion blood. He squeezed her hand, mailed fingers rasping against hers. I'll trust your counsel. The umber axes can do the felling. Catelyn watched him stride away, Grey Wind loping at heel, and felt a swell of mixed pride and dread so fierce it left her dizzy. She turned toward the command tents where Galbart Glover and Lady Mage Mormont argued over oat rations, and plunged into the storm of preparations, determined to knit order from the fraying edges of haste. North of them, hidden within a scrub-choked hollow, Roose Bolton's rear guard picked leeches from their ankles, while the bastard of the Dreadfort sharpened a curved flaying knife with slow, careless strokes. Ramsay's pale eyes followed every passerby, Karstark bowman, Manderley cook, Glover scout, as though deciding which might scream sweetest. His father said little as he bent over a parchment map, illuminated by a single candle. When a raven swooped down, claws clacking upon a rock, Ramsay rose. Another note from the lion's claw? He asked. Roose slit the raven's binding and scanned the message. No crease in his brow betrayed thought. Our ally marches sooner than promised, he said. We must be ready to peel the wolf's hide when it howls loudest. Ramsay's grin showed crooked teeth. I will fetch pink cloaks for the flayers. Roose folded the parchment, slid it into his sleeve, and turned his gaze eastward, where the river shimmered like a silver blade under the first rays of sun. Patience, my son, he murmured. Flaying done too early spoils the meat. At River Run, Sir Bryndon Tully paced the battlements. Arrow shafts protruded from worm-eaten hoardings. Torch stubs guttered beneath a rising breeze. A hush lay over the Lannister camps withdrawn into the tree line, too still. The blackfish gripped the whetstone parapet and let the chill seep into his bones. He felt the river's heartbeat beneath his boots. Felt walls older than Aegon vibrating gently as though anticipating heavy feet atop them again. Everywhere, the scent of siege lingered. Sour smoke, unwashed men, drying blood. Yet no horns sounded, no ladders rattled. In the cold dawn light, Bryndon thought of his nephew Edmure coughing behind the Tolleron doors of the Solar. Wounds reopened by restless pacing. He thought of Catelyn somewhere to the north, of the boy named Prince of Winter, and he whispered to the river, "Hold them, little trout. Your wolf is on the march." And, as if in answer, a distant rumble rolled along the water. Hoofbeats muffled by fresh mud, muted thunder of war. Bryndon smiled grimly and signaled the towers. Lanterns lifted, 3 slow sweeps. Somewhere in wood-smoke distance, a war horn replied, deep as an avalanche. King's Landing seethed under heavy clouds. The Lime Street coppersmiths hammered rivets into the last massive links destined for the boom chain, while Master Waters oversaw sweating crews. Winged rats scurried near the waterfront and scaled the new chain piles only to scamper off with bloodied paws from the heat of the forge. Ned Stark rode along the river, quay astride a rangy gray courser. Soot clung to his cheeks. His cloak smelled of tallow and smoke. Sir Barristan trotted beside him, white cloak now salt-stained at the hem. Dockworkers bowed or muttered curses as they passed, fear and hope in equal measure. A young girl darted from a knot of sailors and pressed a wilted lily into Ned's free hand. "For the hand who feeds us," she whispered. Her eyes were sunken hollows. Ned dismounted, lifted her onto his saddle, and summoned the nearest guard. "Bread for her family," he ordered. "See it done." The guard saluted and shepherded the girl away. Ned watched them vanish between cedar-staved barrels, then turned to Barristan. "Every hour, more mouths," he said. "Every hour. Fewer loaves." Selmy frowned. "If the Tyrells truly mean to resupply us, they must unload before the first Lannister rams appear. Their fleet lingers still at the mouth." "Ace does Stannis," Ned replied. His gaze drifted past the quays to the far-off black sails barely visible through haze. Jaws closing, Barristan. And Joffrey's absence leaves a vacuum hunger rushes to fill. Selmy's jaw tightened. A blessing that whelp was whisked to Casterly Rock with the Queen's other cubs. Yet the city remembers him king. "The city remembers whatever suits survival," Ned muttered. Hoofbeats clattered. Varys arrived on a sleek chestnut mule, robes shimmering violet and soot. "My lord," he called in a sing-song cadence, "Lady Tyrell requests midday audience to finalize grain disbursements. She brings 37 wagons already at the Lion Gate. And our queen would like a word about seating arrangements." "Menderuanti," Ned sighed. "Tell Lady Margaery I shall meet her in the garden at noon. Tell the queen I will hear her at sunset." "A dangerously long sun," Varys observed, but he bowed and clopped away. Selmy chuckled. One short bark. Ned swung into the saddle again. "Back to the keep," he said. "We have roses to water and lions to cage." And as they set off through streets crawling with rumor, Ned felt the ghost of winter kiss his nape. The faintest chill beneath southern heat, or perhaps only the memory of snows distant, but not forgotten. Across town, in a shuttered attic of the Street of Silk, Arya Stark knelt in a circle of dust motes practicing Syrio Forel's forms with needle. Her sparring partner was a coat rack dressed in a moth-eaten Lannister cloak stolen from a laundry line. Each thrust and parry stirred memories of bravos, the smell of fish markets, the slap of sandals on marble. She thought of wolves running in northern woods, and of Sansa's pale face pressed against gone gray stones, and anger sharpened her wrist. Gendry watched from the trapdoor. "You'll stab the floor clean through," he said. Arya flicked her blade into a final halt. "Floor's tougher than most knights' bellies." She straightened, wiping sweat. "Any word from the docks?" Gendry shook his head. He carried a pouch of new shod horseshoes, bartered for spare nails. "Guards everywhere. They talk of enemies on the river and traitors in the streets. Some say your father will open the gates to Stannis. Some say he'll crown Lady Tyrell. All nonsense." Arya sheathed needle. "Not nonsense. Schemes. Father says truths are stones in summer grass. Step careful, else twist your ankle." Gendry smiled crookedly. "Never heard a knight talk like that." "Knights aren't my father," Arya snapped, then softened. "Sorry, but we need to move Sansa soon. If ships blockade the river, escape gets harder." "We'll find a way," Gendry said. He offered her a waterskin. She drank deeply, wiped mouth, and looked out the cracked window toward the Red Keep's distant crimson glint. "Father holds it now," she whispered. "But walls are nets." Sooner or later, fish get tangled. In the high solar of Maegor's Holdfast, Cersei Lannister watched Lady Margaery's grain wagons creak through the great gate with hawk-like intensity. Qyburn lurked beside her, clasping a parchment ledger of poisons and seldom-named potions. The Queen's green eyes shimmered feverish. "She flatters the hand," Cersei hissed. "Feeding the mob to starve my father's claim. Within a fortnight, the small folk will worship her as hearth goddess." Qyburn tilted his head. "Starving wolves tear roses soon enough, your grace. A whisper of bad flour, a rumor of weevil-ridden grain. Panic does the rest." Cersei pursed painted lips. "Too crude. The girl must stand tall until the moment she topples, and then fall so hard her petals scatter across Westeros." She turned, golden hair spilling over bare shoulders. "Prepare the mountain. When Tywin arrives, I want him at the city gates at dawn, alive enough to be feared, dead enough to obey." "As you say," Qyburn murmured. "He craves blood daily now, or else his strength wanes." Cersei's smile cut. "Then let him feast on traitor bones. Begin with the Street of Silk. Too many whispers in those alleys." Tyrion Lannister rode hard under a sky bruised purple by impending storm. He led 500 horse down the narrow post road, cloak plastered by rain. Podrick Payne clung 2 lengths behind him, blinking water from his eyes. Shagga and the rest of the Stone Crows swept the flanks, whooping at each thunderclap as though the sky roared approval. When Maidenpool's crumbling towers loomed through the drizzle, Tyrion called halt. The town stood quiet, half abandoned after years of raiders. He entered the gatehouse alone, passed through echoing streets, and stopped at the old Sept of the Snows. There, beneath a cracked 7-pointed star, he unfurled a damp parchment and placed it on the empty altar. It bore stark sigil forged in wax, with words scrawled by a sure northern hand. "Treaty of Safe Passage." Eddard Stark. Tyrion struck a spark, lit the parchment, and watched it curl to ash. "A dwarf's prayers seldom reach the gods," he muttered. "But sometimes his grace the imp must gamble his soul for his skin." He left the Sept, ordered his men to rebuild the gate palisade, and began drafting another letter, this one addressed to Prince of Winter, camped somewhere along the Red Fork. When Podrick asked what message he'd send, Tyrion said only, "Terms. Better a cautious bite than a sundered limb. Even lions learn." Night deepened over the neck as lightning sheared black clouds. In a reed hut, lashed to 3 alder trunks, Mira Reed crouched beside a small fire with Jojen, eyes half-shadowed. Jojen's lips moved in dream. Sweat beaded on his brow despite the chill. Mira twisted a hemp string around the haft of her frog spear, glancing often at her brother. Suddenly Jojen's eyes opened, pupils wide, green as deep marsh pools. "The crow with 3 eyes calls," he whispered. "It croaks of crimson snow and a broken chain." Mira's heart pounded. "What chain?" Jojen shivered. "One meant to save the city, but another shadow breaks it. And a wolf in gray must bleed before dawn, else all fall." "Menoniter." Mira grasped his shoulders. "Which wolf?" But Jojen's gaze drifted to someplace far. Tears slipped. He closed his eyes, and the fire guttered as thunder rumbled ever nearer. Within Moat Caelan's watchtower, Theon Greyjoy tightened a damp cloak around his shoulders and peered down at the reed-lit causeway. Dark shapes bobbed, Crannog boats unloading supplies. He scowled, thoughts churning. Wolves command islands of mud now. And where is the Kraken? His father's distant summons rang in his mind. "Come home and prove yourself salt true." Yet Robb looked to him for counsel, called him brother. 2 pulls on a tangled rope. Below, Mira emerged on the path, eyes shining with urgency. She hailed him. Theon descended, splashing through puddles. "Prince Robb must know," Mira said. "My brother's dream. Danger." "Wolves dream of danger every night," Theon muttered. But he escorted her to Robb's tent, where Catelyn and Greatjon studied a dripping parchment sealed with Bolton's flayed man. Robb slit the seal. Scanning. Brow furrowed. "Lord Bolton reports Lannister outriders mass near the Weeping Willows. He fears surprise at dawn." Mira stepped forward, voice steady. "Surprise will strike the wolf himself, my prince. My brother dreamt a gray wolf bleeding alone. Beware shadows." Catelyn laid a steadying hand on Mira's arm. "Jojen's gifts are not to be scoffed at." She said. "Take heed." Robb nodded. "Gray wind rides with me, but I'll double guards." Theon half smiled. "And a Kraken too, if you wish." Robb met his grin with strained warmth. A Kraken never fears mud. But when Theon left, the Prince of Winter studied the parchment again, feeling the weight of every whisper and omen along his shoulders like fresh forged plate. Davos Seaworth knelt on the seawall of Dragonstone as sheets of rain hammered basalt. A storm lantern guttered beside him, its flame a fragile defiance. He prayed not to the Lord of Light but to the 7 he'd half forgotten, to Mother and Smith and even the stranger. Grant Stannis sense. Grant him mercy. Grant him something other than fires and phantoms. Above, the painted table chamber windows glowed molten, shadows pacing. When the doors banged open, Davos hurried inside and found Stannis leaning over the map, Melisandre at his elbow, parchment unrolled between them. Stannis' eyes were dark hollows. His gaunt cheeks glistened sweat. Melisandre's lips curved in small victory. "The Lord at Storm's End has yielded," she said. Sir Courtenay dashed himself from the rampart rather than surrender the girl. "The garrison opens its gates at sunrise." Davos' stomach turned. "What girl?" Stannis' hand trembled upon the table. "Renless. Alleged bastard." Melisandre saw truth in fire. Her death would stain the conquest. He rubbed his brow. But Sir Courtenay solved that quandary. Davos swallowed bile. "At what cost, sire? A man leaped to his end, and still you must face Tyrell wrath for the blood they think yours." Stannis met his smuggler knight's eyes. "Cost means nothing if realm survives. When dawn breaks, Storm's End banners fly my stag. Then we sail for King's Landing." He jabbed the map. "We strike before Tyrell and Lannister settle their differences." Melisandre's red jewels glimmered. "The fire's path is clear. Lightbringer will blaze above the Blackwater. Shadows walk behind you, but sunlight will burn them away." Davos bowed, heart heavy. In the lantern flame, the painted table's rivers looked like veins on a flayed man. He wondered who would be left with blood inside when all carving finished. Beyond the wall, Jon Snow and Corran, half-hand watched a silent procession of wildlings, slipped through a narrow rock cleft far below their high perch. They counted scores of torchless figures, raiders, spearmen, ragged clans, moving like river water in darkness. Joan's pulse raced. They seek the Milkwater Pass. Halfhand murmured. If they gain the footholds, we're done. John nodded, snow melting on his eyelashes. We should ride for the fist. After we blind them. Halfhand motioned. Ghost dight. The Dura wolf materialized, white fur shimmering in starlight. Halfhand drew a long hunting knife. We kill the eagle first. From above, a shadow wheeled, massive, silent. John raised his bow, heart pounding. He loosed. The arrow vanished into the night. A screech split the dark. Feathers drifted. Far below, torches flared, cries of alarm. Halfhand cursed. Run. They fled up the ridge, ghost and ranger alike vanishing among stunted pines as horns brayed two blasts. Then three doi stole. John shivered at the third. Something more than wildlings moved in the void beyond. The first clash of steel along the Red Fork erupted beneath lowering skies the same hour Ned Stark knelt, beside a rose bush in the Queen's ballroom garden, listening to Lady Margaery enumerate sackcloth quotas. A servant raced across gravel paths, mud spattering gold. My Lord Hand, he gasped. Ravens. Tywin engages the northern host at Willow Ridge Ford. Lord Karstark's men hold, but falter. Menderwind. Margaery's hand stilled on her wine cup. Ned rose, cloak brushing petals. Send dispatch riders to every gatehouse, he ordered. Alert the watch, and have Hallanine prepare lantern signals for the river boom. No wildfire, only light. Margaery placed the cup aside. If the lions break the wolves, they march here by the morrow's dawn. Ned met her eyes. Then the roses and the wolves must hold the walls together. He offered his arm. She accepted, and they departed through the colonnade, silent but for the distant peal of storm bells tolling above the sept. Willow Ridge Ford boiled with bodies. Rain ran red off shield rims. Arrows hissed through mist. Robb rode at the center, gray wind snarling at his stirrup, Tallheart foot surrounding like an iron tide. Opposite, the gold and crimson tide pressed with ruthless precision. Trumpets blared. Sergeants bellowed Castamere. Halberds smashed northern shields. Robb spied Sir Adam Marbrandt's banner ahead, a white stallion on red, and spurred his courser. The two met in a clash of sparks and sundered lances. Marbrand drew a longsword, but Grey Wind leapt, fangs fastening on the stallion's throat. Horse screamed, toppled. Marbrand rolled free, helm dented, sword slicing the wolf's flank. Grey Wind howled. Rage welled hot in Robb's chest. He swung, took Marbrand across the helm. Steel rang, blood spattered. The Lannister knight fell senseless. Robb dismounted, hefted his sword two-handed. "Back!" he shouted, voice raw. Northern men surged, pushing lions into river shallows. The Prince of Winter knelt beside his direwolf, fingers probing gash. Blood pumped dark and steady. Catelyn found them moments later, mud-speckled, heart hammering. She pressed cloth against the wound while arrows zipped overhead. "Hold, boy," she whispered to the beast, and to her son. The same with her eyes. Theon arrived, flinging a Lannister banner into the ford. "They break," he crowed. But behind him, horns sounded anew. Karstark spearmen faltered as a fresh column of red cloaks splashed in from the south. Lord Tywin himself, armor gilt, helm crowned with lion. His guards battered aside wounded men like reeds, forming wedge about their lord. Robb rose, sword dripping. Rain sluiced hair into his eyes. Tywin removed his helm, revealing stern carved features, unfazed by downpour. "Boy," he called across the churned earth, "yield and save your north. Your father plays gardener to roses while you bleed needlessly. Kneel, and the riverlands may yet see spring." Theon spat. "Heed the man? And string your wolf's pelt on his halls?" "Bind." But Robb said nothing. River water swirled round his boots, icy. Bracing, he raised his sword in salute. Not kneel, not crude gesture, but promise. Then he turned, signaled the Greyjohn. Horns bellowed from the woodline. From both flanks the Crannog boats emerged, piling reed-wrapped oil jugs on currents that flowed behind Tywin's wedge. Torches sailed overhead, struck jugs, flames whooshed across water, licking at lion banners. Horses reared, men screamed. Tywin's eyes narrowed. He bellowed for retreat. Too late. The northern center closed like a vice, driving lions into the fiery shallows. The roar of water and flame drowned cries. Smoke bit lungs. Through it Robb glimpsed Theon dragging Grey Wind toward the bank. Bloody, but alive. He pressed forward until Karstark men seized him. Shouting that the ford was won. The wedge shattered, the lion driven downstream in chaos. Dusk fell red against smoke-choked sky. On a muddy rise Robb hoisted the direwolf trout standard high. The army thundered its victory. Catelyn stood at his side, half sobbing in relief, but his gaze fixed south upon the black coil of river, where Tywin's survivors scrambled. The battle gained, the war still wide. That same dusk Tyrion rode the Maidenpool ramparts, studying dark sails slipping east, Stannis outriders probing. He muttered, "Storm without thunder." Podrick watched anxiously. In his satchel lay Raven's answered. One from Ned Stark, written in firm script. It read, "Your overture noted. Speak again when swords sheathe." Tyrion smiled crookedly. "A cautious wolf, but a wolf," he said. He penned reply. "The lion knows the teeth of winter may bite all hides alike. Let us dine before cold." He sealed it with gold wax, handed to Podrick. "Fly this to River Run," he ordered. "Avoid Lannister posts." Podrick blanched. "Sir, that is 200 leagues through war." "Then best start tonight," Tyrion said softly. Pod swallowed, saluted, and hurried away. Tyrion turned back to the sea where lightning flickered, and wondered if any man could outrun the storm that seemed to bloom in all directions at once. In King's Landing, bells clanged midnight. Ned Stark stood atop the battlements overlooking Blackwater Bay. Below, the chain creaked as teams of oxen hauled the final links into place, sparks cascading into dark water. Lanterns floated, guided by pole boats maneuvering the boom into its sockets. Selmy approached. "It is done," he said. "The river is closed." Ned nodded, throat tight. "Let's pray it never needs to hold." Thunder rolled. Droplets spattered stone. Ned looked north, sensing rather than seeing the distant clash along the Red Fork. He touched the pommel of ice and whispered to unseen gods. Old, new, drowned, fiery. That his son lived, that the chain would hold, that winter's shadow would not swallow them all. Rain thickened, washing soot from walls, smearing torchlight into golden streaks. Somewhere deep in the bowels of the city, a single newborn wailed, the sound carried up by wet flagstones like a prophecy. Ned closed his eyes, felt the tremor of that cry seep into his bones, and thought, if there is to be a dawn it must rise through darkest night. So he stood sentinel while the storm at last broke in full fury over King's Landing, lightning clawing the heavens, thunder rolling like the footsteps of ancient giants. And in that tumult of rain, steel and hope, the threads of fate cinched tighter. Wolf, lion, stag, dragon, each pulled inexorably toward the looming knot that would either bind the realm together or tear it forever asunder. Okay. Rain hammered the earth at Willow Ridge Ford until the churned ground became a red-brown porridge of blood and river silt. By torchlight, stretcher-bearers sloshed ankle-deep through the mire, hauling groaning shapes toward makeshift infirmaries pitched beneath wind-torn banners. Somewhere beyond the tangled knot of bodies, a new moon rose, thin, sharp, almost invisible, as though the gods themselves dared not look upon the carnage their children had wrought. Robb Stark stood on the ford's western bank beneath the wreckage of a willow that had burned and collapsed midway into the river. Grey Wind, bandaged but restless, leaned against his thigh and stared at the oily current drifting past. Torches crackled from poles jammed into the mud. Smoke mingled with mist, swallowing the cries of dying men. Robb pressed a mailed knuckle to his temple, forcing his thoughts to slow. Victory, the Great John had called it. Yet victory tasted like copper pennies and sour fear. A ragged cheer rose somewhere downstream. Sir Ethan Glover pushed through the reeds, helm tucked beneath his arm. "Two across to the south bank, my prince. 3,000 drowned or burned. The rest flee toward Litchfield." He wiped rainwater from his brow. "But he's no throttled kitten." Scouts saw him rally half his horse on a gravel bar. "He'll strike again." Robb's jaw tightened. A wounded lion is twice as dangerous, but so is a wolf defending wounded kin. He glanced at Grey Wind's bandaged flank, then over the river to where Karstark banners formed a brittle wall of spears around piles of Lannister dead. "Tell Sir Helmund Tallhart to post net guards along the southern bar. If Tywin tries to double back in the night, I want the crossing lit like daylight. Archers ready, pitch pots primed. No one sleeps but the wounded." Glover nodded and strode off, leaving claw prints in the mud that filled almost as fast as they were made. Catelyn emerged from the tent hospital, hands crusted with dried blood that was not her own. "Healer says Grey Wind'll keep the scar," she murmured, scratching the direwolf's ear. "Says that counts as good fortune." Robb exhaled, steadying his voice against the weight of her tired eyes. "Karstark's foot stand ragged. I'll fold Manderley reserves into their line at dawn. We march by noon." "March." Catelyn shook her head. "Toward Tywin?" "Past him," Robb replied. "Rivherensia is truly broken, but my uncle holds a castle filled with wounded men and empty granaries. We must slip swords between Tywin's ribs and sprint west before he can twist to strike. Roose covers the rear." A chill rippled through Catelyn at the name. "Be careful where you trust flayed men." Robb opened his mouth, closed it, then spoke softer. "Trust is rationed thin these days, but we have no other foot fresh enough to chase lions if they circle." He squeezed her shoulder. "Rest, mother. You've done more tonight than any woman should." "Dan?" She forced a weary smile. "A mother's work ends only with the world's ending." She turned toward the flickering infirmary, heart thudding each time a scream pierced canvas. Grey Wind whined softly. Robb crouched, thumb stroking between the wolf's ears. Rain rattled across broken shields drifting in the current. Somewhere across the river a horn cried. Thin, wounded, yet defiant. Robb rose, wiped blood mud from his cheek, and murmured, "Tomorrow, brother Dada. First we bind the wounds, then we bind the realm." Bow. Far downstream, in a drifting skiff, lashed to the trunk of a drowned elm, Tywin Lannister stared into the dark. The Chevalier, who had once been Sir Adam Marbrand, lay beside him, lips blue. His beloved white stallion, shattered and lost, bobbed near the bar, caught on a submerged branch. Tywin's cloak was gone, so too his polished helm. Rain plastered lank gold hair against a face carved from granite. Kevin's voice carried through the downpour. "Our scouts say Stark holds the ford, my lord. Their Northmen expect your retreat to Lichfield." He glanced at the river's black ribbon. "We could circle east along the high water road, bypass his camp entirely. Strike at Moat Cailin while it's picketed thin." Tywin's gaze never wavered. "No, the boy wolf must be muzzled now, or he'll bear fangs at every lion's cub." He turned slowly, eyes cold. "Send swift riders to Harrenhal. Ramsay Bolton will rip out the throat we cannot reach. Offer him everything. Gold, titles, whatever flayed fiend desires." Kevin swallowed. "And the small folk he skins. Small folk grow back like weeds." Tywin wiped sediment from his gauntlet. "One harvest burned nurtures 10 fields of fear." He shifted, wincing at a bruise. "At first light we march south. Leave faint camps along the banks. Bolton strikes their rear, we slam their front. The river will run red enough to be seen from the moon." Lightning split the sky, painting Kevin's features stark. 7, "Save us from such tides," he whispered. But in the thunder's echo, no prayer answered. Storm-racked waves tossed the silver serpent as if the cog were a child's toy. On deck, sailors cursed and fought sheets. Daenerys Targaryen stood at the prow, cloak whipping, silver-white hair plastered to her cheeks. Below, her dragons shrieked, Drogon's roar booming over roar of surf, Viserion and Rhaegal answering. The ship's master begged her to seek shelter below, but Dany felt the storm like a second heartbeat. Every bolt of skyfire lit a path across the water, west-west to the land of her birth. Ser Jorah zeitzed her elbow when the deck lurched. "Khaleesi," he shouted above the wind. "If this squall worsens, we'll lose half our masts. Allow the captain to heave to." "Now." "Enchai." "Eri." Dany's violet eyes glowed. "And drift south toward Lys." "No. This ship sails for Westeros, Ser Jorah. If the storm is a trial, we ride it." A roar rose. Not thunder, but Drogon bursting from the hold. Wings pounding rain. Flames licked from his gullet. Steam churning. Crewmen cowered. Rigging snapped beneath his wings. Dany raised her hands, palms outward. "Drogon, Snagon." The dragon wheeled once, circled her head, and landed on the forecastle rail. Talons sparking on soaked oak. He lowered his massive head, black scales shimmering like oil. She pressed her forehead to his snout, whispers of Valyrian streaming. Lightning unveiled them. Queen and dragon fused by stormlight. Jorah watched awestruck. "Aegon returned," he murmured. Dany stroked Drogon's jaw, then turned. "Set storm sails." "We will not yield." Crew scrambled. In Drogon's fiery shadow, fear gave way to fervor. The silver serpent cut into the dark, timbers singing. Dragonfire flickering across swollen waves like a beacon summoning every destiny-laden tide to converge. In the Red Keep, Ned Stark's solar flickered with lantern light as Varys perched near the hearth. Scrolls littered the table between them. Dispatches from the ford, ravens from the wall, intercepted letters bearing lion sigils. The hand poured watered wine into 2 small cups. "They say war is won by iron and gold," Ned mused, voice thick with sleeplessness. "But I'm drowning in both, and victory feels farther each hour." Varys sipped delicately. "Gold buys swords, my lord. But iron bleeds men. You have men enough. What you need is time." He set the cup down. "Stannis sails at dawn. Tyrell roses weigh alliances, like bees weigh blossoms. Should a single petal fall wrong, the hive swarms. Nendasau." Ned leaned back, fingers drumming ice's pommel where it rested across his knees. "You counsel spiders patience, while wolves snap and lions hunt. I have no time." His gaze rose to the ceiling beams. "Robb bleeds by river. Jon marches through snow. My girls are cornered in this nest of vipers. Time is the one luxury I cannot afford." Varys folded his hands. "Then perhaps you require a different coin. Information can buy days, sometimes years. Truth, even half-truth, can shift entire siege lines." Ned's eyes narrowed. "Speak plain." The spider produced a slim parchment from voluminous sleeve. A report smuggled from Raventree Hall, penned by a maester sworn to house Blackwood. It claims Ramsay Bolton's levies have left the moat under darkness, guided by Lannister riders. They aim for Saltspear Ford to strike Northmen's rear. He slid the parchment across. "If true, the Prince of Winter's flank is perilously bare." Ned scanned the words. Heart pounding. "I'll raven him at once." "Ravens may fall," Varys interrupted. "Bolton's men know a hawk feather from a crow's. His archers practice on birds." The eunuch's eyes gleamed. Yet a solitary rider with a fresh horse and a name no one questions might pass unseen. Ned traced the parchment's edge. "You used to call yourself Rugen when moving through dungeons. A mask among many." Varys lowered his voice. "I would go, but my spiders spin here. They cannot run miles by day. You, however, wield ice and legend. A Stark riding south past the neck might draw every eye." And risk leaving the city to Cersei's fangs? Ned shook his head. No. Died. I must remain. Then Varys considered him. Then send a wolf you trust. A swift one. Ned's mind leapt. Arya, too wild. Sansa, trapped. Theon, uncertain. But there was one. Jory Castle's nephew Aeron. A quiet scout raised in Wolfswood, now captain of the Queen's Gate. Ned nodded. He'll ride within the hour. Varys exhaled. I shall see the portcullis squeaks less than usual. Lightning flashed beyond the balcony, illuminating rooftops slick with rain. Ned felt the tremor of decision settle into his bones like the chill of steel. Chains, he thought, hold more than ships. They bind choices, destinies, lives. And some links, once forged, cannot be unmade without breaking everything they tether. 3 streets below, Cersei Lannister walked barefoot in the damp corridor of Maegor's, dank under crypts. Torches spit resinous smoke. Shadows writhed. Ahead, Qyburn's candle bobbed. The Queen's green eyes fixed on the monstrous figure, chained to a stone slab. The thing that had been Sir Gregor Clegane. A hide blanket covered most of his bulk, but where it slipped Cersei saw gray flesh, sewn by crude black sutures. The mountain's chest rose unevenly. Breath rattled like wind in a graveyard bell. Is he ready? She asked. Qyburn knelt, pressed 2 fingers to the giant's spongy neck. He hears nothing, Your Grace, but he listens. The spark of rage remains, harnessed, waiting command. Cersei's lips parted in hunger, and dread mingled. Then when my father knocks at Lion Gate, he will find a shadow bigger than his own. She drew a small vial from her bodice. Green glint. Wildfire's kiss. Uncorked. The vapor curled upward. We'll test him, Maester. One last proof. Qyburn's eyes flickered. My queen. Cersei tipped the vial onto a pile of straw, an arm's length from the slab. Flames leapt green, hissing. She stepped back. The mountain's eyes snapped open. Red-rimmed, unfocused. A guttural bellow erupted. Chains strained. He tore free a shackle, lurched, stamped the fire underfoot. Flesh sizzled, but he did not flinch. He pivoted, searching for foes that were not there. Cersei smiled. You see? Fire cannot consume the mountain. She turned. Skirts swirling. Ready him for dawn. The city will have its titan. Now. Atop Old Tower in Old Town Citadel, Archmaester Marwyn the Mage studied a glass candle, sputtering alive after a century of dark. Shadows of distant wars flickered in its eerie glow. He saw a wolf with iron crown howling beneath red skies, a dragon queen riding on stormfire, a stag king wielding sword of light, and beyond them all, a tide of blue shadows marching south. He touched the candle, felt its heat, and understood. Every whispered prophecy collided at Blackwater's mouth. Yet the true howl of night would rise far beyond any river. Marwyn donned black cloak, locked his chambers, and hurried down spiral stairs. Time to sail, he thought. Time to gather truths before lies devoured the world. On the fist of the first men, Jon Snow knelt in snow crusted with hoarfrost. All around him rang the ceaseless wind of the haunted forest. Ghost waited at his side, fur bristling. Qhorin Halfhand crouched over a freshly killed wildling scout, broken spear still clutched in rigid fingers. He wore no horn. Halfhand murmured. But these arrows, bronze tight. Then make. They've never crossed the Milkwater till now. Benderawander. Jon nodded, cold seeping into bones. 3 blasts last night. Something else moves. Halfhand straightened. Then we ride for the wall tomorrow. Mance gathers for war, and darker shapes ride his wake. He caught Jon's shoulder. If they capture us, you know what we must do. Jon met his gaze. Die before speaking. Die before returning, Qhorin corrected. One life is little next to realm. He squeezed Jon's forearm, then strode to rally the others. In the storm-lit dark, Jon turned southward, letting his eyes trace imaginary roads to King's Landing, to Winterfell, to a father he hadn't seen for moons, but felt closer than ever, as though battle and snow tied them with invisible sinew. Ghost nudged his wrist. John sighed. Soon, boy. We'll run free soon. But in his heart he heard Bran's voice echoing through weirwood leaves. You will run in places no man can follow. And he wondered what price the gods took for such gifts. Morning crept across the ford in hesitant grays. Fire smoldered down to stink and smoke, and crows hopped amid tufts of ravaged tents pecking at scraps of flesh. Robb rode along the perimeter, cloak mended with haste, armor smeared. Great John Umber greeted him with gap-toothed grin, blood-spattered doublet open to the chill. Lions skittered like rats, he boomed. Let us chase them to Litchfield and mount their heads. Robb shook his head. We chase but do not overrun. Our men need rest, the horses need forage. We march west, round midday. He broke off as horns brayed to the north. Eyes narrowed. He spurred up the embankment. A scout galloped, face drawn. Bolton's banners, my prince, marching hard from the marsh road behind us. And with them, gold lions. Robb's blood iced. How far? An hour's ride. Robb's brain raced. Forward lay Tywin's broken but rallying host. Behind Bolton's treachery, he glanced at the white knife of the Red Fork. Still swollen. Still wild. Catelyn climbed the slope beside him, cloak whipping. She read his expression, and her face drained. You can withdraw east, split the line, lose half, she murmured. Or turn and break the Dreadfort traitors before the lion regroups. Robb stared at the river, water roaring, carrying debris toward the sunrise sea. He looked at Grey Wind, now on his feet, tail thrashing. Choice weighed like lead. He raised his sword, voice ringing across battlements. Form ranks. We turn north. Show the flayed man what a wolf's heart tastes like. Horns answered. Men scrambled. The ford no longer mattered. Wolves would meet knives on open ground. Catelyn watched him ride, fear and fierce pride intertwining. She whispered prayer after prayer, but the gods drowned them beneath thunder roll of hooves. On King's Landing's battlements, Ned Stark stood with Sir Barristan, as the first sunlight ripped through storm clouds. Below, the chain stretched taut across Blackwater like a serpent. Gulls shrieked. Barristan shaded his eyes. There, he said. At Rivermouth, black sails filled the morning breeze, Stannis' fleet pushing forward. Across the bay, Tyrell Lannister galleys angled toward Mouth as well, rose banners rippling. Two jaws closing. Ned's pulse hammered. Signal the boom ready. Below, Hallin's men swung red lanterns, horns blew, chain gears groaned. Slack hauling. Ned watched the dark water churn against iron links and wondered which weight would snap first. The chain, the jaws, or the fragile thread still holding 7 kingdoms from utter ruin. He bowed his head. Winter, keep us, he murmured. Clouds parted. Sunlight struck the Red Keep's towers, glinting on spear tips, helm crests, the polished greatsword ice upon Ned's back. And for one fleeting heartbeat, the city looked almost beautiful, like a gem poised atop ruin, awaiting the hand strong enough, gentle enough, to set it in a new crown or dash it beyond all hope. The heartbeat passed. Drums boomed from Stannis' decks. Roses unfurled on Lannister's sails. And the storm began again, no longer of wind and water, but of iron, fire, and the relentless hunger of destiny.